Welcome back to the Empowered Woman, Badass, and Unfiltered podcast. Your host, Olivia, here today. I'm with Kimberly DeShields, and she is a serial entrepreneur and woman of God. She's got a few different brands that I would love to talk about, a few different businesses. One is You Impact. The other is behind her brand. The other is You Impact Publishing and Sow Reap Harvest.
Yeah.
Today, we are talking about her story and what it takes to have an unwavering faith in God. Thank you so much, Kim, for joining me today. We've already had some technical difficulties, so we know it's real. I'm
Yeah.
so pumped up and ready for this conversation today.
Me too. Me too. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. So tell me I know you started You Impact 20 years ago. So how did the whole entrepreneurial world start for you?
I always tell people I feel like I came out the womb with a briefcase. I have always loved business. I had my first business actually in middle school. I was doing marketing flyers by markers, and trying to get people for babysitting. Even at that age, I mean, it was like little kids at church and stuff like that. And over time, I had like a lawnmower business. Then I had the traditional lemonade stand. Like I seriously was like always thinking about business. Even in high school, the high school I graduated from was called Business Careers High School. So it was a whole high school structured around for you going into business. So for me, it was always something that I just felt very passionate about. Some people are, learn their passions later in life. I feel like literally when I came out, I just knew marketing and business always intrigued me. It was the creative aspect of building something from ground up was just exciting to me. So I got into U Impact. Actually, I worked for 1 year of my whole life. After I got out of college, I went to work for a school, and my supervisor was a professional speaker. And she was looking for someone to help market her. And I didn't know anything about that industry. And I was like, well, I'm getting my master's in marketing, so why not? And so we just forged this beautiful friendship. And within literally probably about a year and a half, I had 45 speakers that I was marketing. I left that job when I was 20 something, 20 half, I guess. And I've been on my own ever since. And so I did that for a number of years, for about 8 years. And Olivia, is one of those things that I learned very quickly that all money is not good money. Like here I am in my 20s and I'm making crazy amount of income. I had access to some of the most amazing people in the world that, people look up to, and I was just miserable, absolutely miserable. It was a position that I created for myself where I was doing everything for everybody. I was marketing for them, doing their travel, booking them and getting their contracts. And I was just miserable. And I realized I felt like I was crippling my clients because they didn't know what to do. They had no clue how to do a single thing when it came to the marketing because I did it all. And so one day I just kind of crashed and burned and I was like, Lord, I can't do this anymore. And so it flipped it. He allowed me to start showing people how to do it. And that's where U Impact was born. From there, I created U Impact, and ever since then, I still have the business where I do marketing and branding and I help people. And now, ironically, I do some marketing and branding for people, but it's definitely by case basis. But they understand their marketing; it's just the outsourcing pieces of it. And then from that umbrella was birthed Sow Harvest, where I love sewing into people, and so that's our subscription box services. Um, that has just been a blessing all around. And then I also have the publishing, which was birthed out of a really, I would say, difficult publishing experience that I had. And it was funny when God put on my heart, do your own company. I was like, what? Like, I know nothing about it. And here's the funny thing, the name of the first every day was Behind Her Brand. And so he gave me that name and launched Behind Her Brand. So the first book series we ever did was called Behind Her Brand. And so I did that for a number of years. And I still do publishing actually, but Behind Her Brand was a book series. That's all it was for a number of years. And so I went through, as weird as it may sound, a divorce after 14 years. And God was leading me out, and I didn't know why. And He definitely let me know why later. But in that season of healing, He helped me remember who I was in Him in my journey. And so He gave me Behind Her Brand again. And I thought it was closed, just a book series, but He gave me a whole new vision on the beach out in San Diego. And from that, I started creating that. I got remarried. Um, it just a whole new world opened up, and I realized I'm walking the very message now that I'm hoping to inspire others too, about sharing their journeys and sharing their ups and downs, and that no road to success, is easy. It's paved with so many different milestone moments of learning.
Ooh,
So, yes.
thank you for sharing all of that.
Yeah.
How do you know when it's a good thing or a God thing? When you were told to basically make this shift and rebrand
Mhm.
behind her brand, how did you know it was from God?
For me personally, because he didn't give me all the steps. He knows that for me, like I'm a planner, girl, I need to see every A, B, C, D, color code it and or organize it. And I've learned with him when he comes deals with me in those moments, it's like I'm gonna give you the first step. And I'm like, where's the next one? And so he doesn't give that to me till I'm ready. And but it's also a confirming in my spirit when I'm scared and when I'm nervous or when it feels a little bit like, okay, this seems bigger than me. Like the idea of even launching a magazine, the most I've ever done with a magazine was buy one. I never thought to create one, did not know where to start. And when he gave me that, it was like he showed me, this is me and you, Kim. This is not about you looking for anyone else. And Olivia, I went and searched and I reached out to people that I knew had their magazines, and they were not open to sharing how they did it. It was so interesting. And I realized I'm trying to knock on doors that he's saying, Kim, it's me and you. And so one night, honestly, I was like, Lord, show me what I'm supposed to do. And it felt like everything just started clicking. And so I didn't have a mentor in it. It was literally trial by error. And it was just me and him. And honestly, that's the fabric of how me and him have been. From the box business to even launching U Impact, everything was just me and him. Yeah.
That's you said something powerful. This seems bigger than me.
Yeah.
And it's really knowing that it's with you and him, it's his strength
It
that
is.
is working through you
Yeah.
to help you become what he's created you to be.
Exactly. And trusting that, like that's one thing that I've learned throughout my entire journey is trust his voice, not question it. It's so easy for us to say, is that really from God? That can't be from God. No, God wouldn't want me to do that. And a lot of times when that pops up, really we have to address our insecurities that are popping up. Because oftentimes he sees more in us than we ever see in ourselves. So when he saw that in me, my first thought was like, okay, God, I have no clue. But I knew that he saw something in me. And that always gave me some sense of confidence, if that's the best word to use, that if you think I can do this, then let me figure this out. Yeah.
What are some of the limiting beliefs that you've had to let go on your entrepreneurial journey?
Ooh, that's a good question. Honestly, for me, I would say probably the biggest one is would anyone care that is coming from me? Because I didn't think highly of my own self because I've never been like the best speaker. I'm very, very introverted in many, many ways. So I kept always thinking, God, are you sure me? Are you sure I'm supposed to be this? Especially when people call on me to speak or to do something. I'm I don't do it as much now, but in my early years, it was always a questioning of, are you sure? Are you sure? Because I would start looking at everyone else who seemed to have this amazing amount of confidence. They burst with it. But I will tell you, it's funny. I always tell people don't ever hate, despise, or reject the experiences that you've had because they all shape some format of where you're going. And when I work with the speakers, I saw some of the best names in the industry today, but I also saw all their insecurities behind closed doors. And I got a chance to see, that the same things I was struggling with, they were struggling with. It's just that they presented it differently. And so I had to really work on affirming myself and not speaking against who I am or my limitations, speaking more into, okay, if I'm not strong in this area, how can I build into that? And that's how I started challenging my limiting beliefs and trusting that God will give me what I need. But I also have to do the work to um, affirm that I may not be this or that, but this is what I am. And since this is what I am, I can show up in what I am. Yeah.
I love to say there is no testimony without a test.
Yeah.
What is a time in your life that you've been extremely tested and really questioned, your ability to do all of the things that God has set out for you to do?
I would say it's probably definitely the year that I went through my divorce because it was also the height of all of my businesses. Like everything was like ready to go to that next level. And then all of a sudden I felt this unction that other things were happening in my personal life. And it was time for me to let that go. And that was traumatic for me. Not so much because of, this may sound so bad, not because I was letting go of a marriage that wasn't healthy for me, but it was more of you're up leveling your whole life, my kid's life, at a time where my businesses are like growing. And that to me was a lot. It was a lot of learning in that. But what it also taught me so much, Olivia, was just that so many times we have to uproot certain things and you don't always know what it is and you can't always plan for what it is. And so in that season, I had to learn to be okay with telling everybody at the height of everything that I'm pausing for 1 year. I needed to process. I needed to make sure my son was good. And it was one of the hardest decisions I've ever made as a business owner because at that time, if I even told you half the things that seemed like it was coming together, most people would be like, Kim, you're crazy. Like, don't do any of that. But I needed to for my own mental health and for my sons, to make sure that our world was restabilized. And I realized, just a constant lesson that God keeps showing me. Success doesn't look like what people always think it needs to look like. When I took a year off, which was a big risk, I came back much stronger, healthier, and better. And God didn't allow me to miss a single thing in terms of my business. And I was so blessed because I didn't have to tell everybody why I was taking a break. I just knew I needed to. And that was a hard decision because even people around me thought I was crazy. They kept saying, Kim, you're going to lose everything. No one's going to want to work with you. All these different things. And I think the hardest thing sometimes for business owners to do, especially Christian business owners, is to turn off the noise and turn off what people are saying because these are well-meaning people, you know, um, and people maybe you may trust, but you have to listen to the voice of God because I felt like God wanted me to sit for a minute and see. And in that year that I sat was when Behind Her Brand, the magazine was birthed. It was when he showed me how to expand Soy Purpose. It was all these different things that I was healing on a personal side, but I was also, God was just talking to me. And I have journals to this day where we were just having conversations. And he needed me to have that season with just me and him, like my mountaintop experience. I went to San Diego on the beach. That's where I did mine, but it was like sit on the beach for hours. He needed me and him to have those moments together. And I couldn't have had them if I was still pursuing everything that I thought I needed to pursue.
Turn off the noise
Yeah.
is really one of the things that I took from there. There was a lot in that, but turning off the noise of what everybody else has to say and understanding that you have to just focus in on where God is taking you.
Yes.
Going to the secret place, what is it?
Exactly.
And we never, we're so like, we think in general, like humans think so like, okay, this is today, this is tomorrow, these are the goals, it needs to look linear. You talking about success does not always look the same. Like that is one of the revelations that I had this year, like, because my birthday was last week and I do a recap of like all of the lessons I learned. And one of the things that I learned was success sometimes looks like a sucky mess. Like it's just like the parts of what makes things successful is not just glitz and glam at all. It's a lot of mess, it's the parts that are not seen. It's the long hours, and a lot of people, they'll look at people's highlight reel and they'll think that it's all just, it's not as hard as they say it is.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. That is so true. I've seen people go through so much, which is why I feel like everything I've ever done has been trying to share, hopefully encourage people that don't base decisions in your life off of someone's highlight reel, because what you're seeing isn't always 100%. And I don't knock people sharing good things and hard things and what have you, but when people base out their worth on what they're seeing, that's when it becomes an issue. You don't want to base your worth off of what you're seeing someone post on occasion, you know?
Oh yeah. Because I mean, most people want to post what's aesthetically pleasing anyway.
Yes. Yes.
Like they don't want to post when they're crying, and if they do, it's oftentimes people think like the ultimate reaction is, oh, they're just doing it for sympathy likes. It's not genuine. And I've seen a lot of people do stuff and I'm just like, is that really genuine? Is this just because of the hook on the end, like
I hear you. I hear you 100%.
It's a really
And that's a hard
interesting
thing.
role.
It is. It's like it's that interesting place of being real and not trying to manipulate realness, So yeah.
Don't manipulate realness. What are some what's some advice that you would give to someone that is in like a wilderness season and they're like, they just don't understand why God's taking them the way that he's taking them?
I would tell them to fully be in the wilderness. Like, don't try to rush that season, because oftentimes I find when we're in the wilderness season is the seasons where God is trying to talk to us and teach us. But so often we're like trying to get out. We're trying to find ways to get around it and try to supplement it and all that. And what's happening is we create our own noise. It's not the noise from outside. We're creating it ourselves. And God wants you just to be still and listen. And I find oftentimes in those moments there's some of the sweetest moments, although the hardest moments, because that's where he's growing you differently. He's talking to you differently. He's trying to expose things differently. Um, and oftentimes when we're trying to get out of it, we miss those moments. And I find that he will send them back to you again because he's like, I'm trying to help you because I want to get you to where you desire to be and where I desire you to be. But if you're rushing this time together, I got to send it back to you again. So I think when you're in those moments, instead of saying or asking why, saying, what do you want to teach me right now? Like, talk
Mhm.
to me, Lord. Spend that time in praise and worship. And I know that sounds kind of hokey and what have you, but I've learned the more we ask the question why, we tend to get our own selves into like a tizzy. We tend to work our own selves up and feel like he's quiet, he's not answering, he's not doing all these different things when he's probably answering us. We're just not listening because we're looking for a specific answer. And oftentimes the answer that we're looking for may not be exactly what we're seeking. So whenever I have those seasons of quietness, and I used to get frustrated. That's why I can speak to that. I used to be like, I'm such a person. There's some things I'm just not going to understand, and I will work myself up. And I can also create distance in my relationship with him because I don't know about you, and maybe some people may have experienced this, but when I used to be in wilderness seasons and I felt like he wasn't answering me, I would get mad at him, or I'll get hurt, or I feel like he doesn't like me no more, or I feel all these things start coming up that are just lies, but then we nurture the lie. And so I just learned now whenever there's a quiet season and it feels a little bit like, okay, God, you're pausing things. I said, what do you need me to see and learn? And so I would just encourage anyone, just be in those moments. It doesn't mean you have to stop moving, but just really be in those moments and ask him what is it he needs you to know and see, learn, or even uproot, in this season.
I found that, yeah, when you try to rush the process, it definitely just takes longer instead
Yes.
of surrendering to the process that God's taking you through.
Yeah.
And it's so hard. It's so hard. It's just be like, okay,
Oh,
but
yeah.
like really letting go of the expectations of how you think it's supposed to be and cutting out the noise.
Yeah.
I you saying, when you ask all these questions and you think that God's not answering you because
Mhm.
you have this expectation of how he should,
Yeah. Exactly.
but he
Yeah.
can't do a new thing if you're looking for
Mhm.
the same thing that he's been doing before.
Amen. And often we have our own set of answers. To me, it limits him to give us the answer that we best for us. So yeah. Oh yeah.
What are some unique ways that God has spoken into you on your journey through,
Mhm.
your growth, your relationship through him?
Oh, that's actually a hard one. Because I find that he gives me phrases. He speaks a lot to me during songs. So everyone who knows me knows I carry a journal with me everywhere, in my purse, my bag, like because I'm sometimes I could be driving and all of a sudden he'll say something and I have to pull over and quickly write it down. Like Behind Her brand was given to me maybe 6, 7 years before I even launched it, but it was a name that stuck with me and I didn't know why. I learned that he always speaks to me in music. Like when I wake up in the morning and if I'm in whatever season it might be, sometimes it's a worship song that keeps playing and playing like it's just like an ongoing record in my head. And I learned that he speaks to me through the words of the song. So what I do is I look up the whole lyrics, I want the whole song. And so often I find the comfort that I need, or I find an answer that I need, or I find a direction that I need. Um, so he speaks to me a lot in those ways. And I would say the third way that he kind of communicates with me is through people. I love when people who are random, don't know nothing, and they come and they call me and then they speak a word into my heart. Because then I feel more like that's confirming from the Lord. But the biggest thing is definitely I'm a writer, writing out down thoughts and prayers and phrases or things that just come up. And I know those are ways that he speaks to me. So that's probably the best way I can, answer that.
I love it. God speaks to me a lot of times in like numbers. And it's like, Yeah, like I'll see the same numbers over
Yeah,
and over and over, like all the time, just in
yeah,
different seasons. And I make sure that I'm looking up like the biblical meaning
right,
and not the angel number of it.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Because there's so many different new things that are out here,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
not really new things, or just like new age isn't new. It's been around for a long time. It's just called something
yeah,
different.
exactly. Repackaged faithfully. Yeah.
But the songs, I
Mhm.
do, I'm very much a music person as well. So I can definitely relate to that. And the song Oceans. I don't know if and I love the Tasha
I
Cobbs
do.
Leonard cover of that. You can't find it on Spotify, not yet. Hopefully
Yeah.
they'll get it on there, but it's on YouTube. And I don't think that when people listen to that song, they're really understanding what they're asking God to do in their
Mhm.
lives.
Yeah.
Spirit lead me where my trust is without borders. Like,
Yeah.
hold up. You're gonna really test your
That's
trust,
powerful.
you know?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
that yeah, spirit lead me where my trust is without borders. Take me into no matter how high these oceans, let me
Mhm.
rest in you. So
Yeah.
no matter how crazy it gets, listen,
Yeah.
you're asking for it to get crazier.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think people
But
realize.
we don't think about that. Just like it's the same thing, we always hear don't ever ask God for patience because then he'll send you situations where patience is needed. Sometimes we don't realize what we are actually asking. Um, because God wants our complete trust without borders. He wants us to fully see him and rely on him. And sometimes that's easier to said than done, because we still operate sometimes with our thinking and our ways of what we want things to feel like and all of that. So yeah.
Oh man. So where do you think God's taking you in this next season? Since any
Mhm.
new steps that he's given you?
It's been interesting. I've been writing down stuff for probably about a good year now, just different notes. And I feel like he wants me to expand even more how we're doing behind her brand. Um, eh, More so, I would say in the lesson side of things. I've been feeling that earning to go into that, where we're sharing with people, not just tips and tools and things like that, but even visually and creatively. So we're looking at doing some animated type of stuff and with live people. I shouldn't say animated like a cartoon, but really start putting situations in a visual way that can hopefully create a different level of impact where people can see how words and conversation can really impact someone. I think it's different when we post quotes and we post, our own encouragement, but visually seeing it played out and how it can hurt someone or how it can encourage someone or what have you. I've been feeling that a lot. So we've been working on that slowly over the summer, just filming a lot of stuff around that. So I feel like he's going to be deepening, hopefully, the impact that he's calling us to make in this space. And part of that also, too, is even if God says the same, it seems like he is, we wanted to create a fund where we can start blessing people who have dreams and have vision and sow into them with nothing in return. They don't have to go through hoops for it. But we want to be able to sow into women that really and truly want to build and grow, but don't always have the resources to do so. So we have a multiple different things that he's starting to seed around us to build. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm so excited to watch all of these things happen, Kimberly.
Thank
Um,
you.
Guys, as I mentioned before, check out her links in the show notes below. She's definitely somebody you're going to want to follow and have in your space, especially if you are a Christian female entrepreneur in general, but especially, as Christian women, we really do like to have
Yeah.
Christian mentors
Yeah.
because it's in this business space, because like you mentioned before, all money is not good money. All advice is not meant for us if we're not trying to live this way, a worldly way. If we're trying to live a God driven way, then you definitely have to get your mentorship from those that have the same spiritual belief system as you do.
And I would even encourage you to even to tag onto that because I had a lady recently and she wanted to just kind of run something by me about a mentor in the Christian space. And she and I actually were very new to each other. I didn't really know her. She just was a friend of a friend kind of thing. And she's like, something told me just to reach out to you. And we all know what something is. It's always the Holy Spirit. And so she was getting ready to hire a mentor. And the things that she was sharing with me, the mentor was taking her through, is valid in the business world. But I asked her, I said, the seed that you're trying to grow, what God is trying to develop in you, did she even ask you about that? And so she's like, well, no. And I said, but she's asking you more about the financials and making sure you're good and all these other things. And she was like, yeah, because she wants to make sure that, if we start a business and we start coaching, I can take care of it, the whole time. And I said, but she never asked you about your dream, asked you what God has deposited into you. And she got quiet. She goes, no, I didn't even think about that. And I always encourage people, not that you're always going to meet a Christian mentor per se, but whoever you link up with your vision and the things that God has given you, make sure they care more about that than filling your pockets. Because I believe this to this day, and God has shown me and been faithful to it, that the money always comes. He always provides. He always takes care of you. But I lead first with making sure, can I help you take care of your seed? So whenever someone calls and says, I want to hire you, that to me is God's way of saying, Kim, you're supposed to help them water the seed that I give into them. And I focus on that. And I've always believed, and he like I said, he's done it. He takes care of the rest. So I would just encourage anyone, if they are looking for a mentor, make sure someone cares about you more than the other pieces of it. And we're business women, so I get it. You got to, pay your bills and all of that. So I'm not saying negate that,
Yeah.
but it's still like they're going to show you their heart towards you in the conversations, and be mindful of that.
Yeah. Checking people's heart postures is extremely important.
Yes.
Thank you so much for sharing all of this
You're
with me
welcome.
today and for sharing space with me. I greatly appreciate it.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.